On the cold morning of December 21, 1944, Brigadier General John Hamilton Hines stood inside his artillery command post on Elsenborn Ridge, Belgium, directing the firepower that would determine whether the northern shoulder of the German Ardennes offensive would collapse or hold firm. At 46, a seasoned West Point graduate with 26 years of experience and a rare mastery of artillery science, Hines understood that the Germans' attempt to capture the ridge would shape the outcome of the entire northern front. The Ardennes assault had begun 5 days earlier. Over 200,000 German troops, nearly 1,000 tanks, and hundreds of artillery pieces surged west toward the Meuse River. The 6th SS Panzer Army under Sepp Dietrich had been tasked with seizing Elsenborn Ridge, the dominant high ground controlling the road network north of the German advance. If the Germans succeeded, they would gain access to Liège, threaten 1st Army headquarters, sever the Allied line, and potentially reach Antwerp. To stop them, Hines had assembled the greatest concentration of artillery in American history: 348 guns from the 1st, 2nd, 9th, and 99th Infantry Divisions plus 5th Corps Heavy Artillery, 16 battalions of 105 mm and 155 mm howitzers, coordinated with 6 battalions of corps-level guns, all locked onto pre-registered German approaches and linked through a dense network of radios and telephones to forward observers fighting desperately in the villages of Krinkelt and Rocherath below. But assembling guns was only half the problem. The real challenge lay in coordinating them. Traditional artillery doctrine relied on batteries firing sequentially, adjusting one at a time, a method far too slow for mobile warfare, giving enemy troops 30 seconds or more to scatter after the first shells landed. In a battlefield where German infantry could disperse in 15 seconds, sequential fire wasted opportunities. The bottleneck was mathematical. Fire direction centers needed 3 to 5 minutes to compute data for each battery using old 76-page firing tables requiring interpolation, drift correction, and meteorological adjustments. Solving this problem had required someone who understood both engineering and artillery frustration: Captain Abbott Harrington Burns. A former cavalry officer who hated horses, Burns was assigned to Fort Sill in 1940 and quickly realized the firing table system was impossibly slow. He stayed late in empty classrooms, sketching ideas for a mechanical computer that could do firing calculations instantly. Inspired by slide rules, he built the first graphical firing table, a 10-inch wooden device with printed scales and a sliding cursor capable of solving firing problems in under 30 seconds with perfect accuracy. Most officers dismissed it, except Major George V. Kaiser, a visionary instructor who recognized the device as revolutionary. Together, Burns and Kaiser refined the tool for 3 months, proving it allowed enlisted soldiers to compute firing data faster than trained officers using tables. Bureaucracy slowed adoption, but by 1942 the Field Artillery School produced them in bulk, and by 1944 thousands were in combat theaters. The graphical firing table enabled true time-on-target coordination, batteries at different distances firing so that all shells arrived simultaneously, giving the enemy no warning and causing catastrophic initial casualties. By December 1944, many American artillery units used the device, but Elsenborn Ridge was the first battle in which virtually every battery in a major sector used it simultaneously. When the German offensive erupted on December 16, the inexperienced 99th Infantry Division held the line near the ridge. Green troops stretched dangerously thin. The Germans opened with a massive 90-minute bombardment from over 1,000 guns, then launched attacks by the 12th Volksgrenadier Division, the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend, and Kampfgruppe from the 1st SS Panzer Division. Yet the 99th held astonishingly well, especially the 18-man reconnaissance platoon under Lieutenant Leilbauch at Lanzerath, which delayed a German parachute regiment for nearly 12 hours, throwing off the entire SS timetable. As the line began to buckle on December 17, the veteran 2nd Infantry Division, battle-hardened survivors of the Hurtgen Forest, was ordered to fall back and establish a main defensive line on Elsenborn Ridge. For 3 days, brutal house-to-house fighting in Krinkelt and Rocherath delayed the Germans long enough for American forces to withdraw in order. By December 19th, the 12th SS Panzer Division had spent 3 days gaining only 2 miles and suffered enormous losses. Now they faced the ridge, heavily defended and ringed by the greatest artillery mass the U.S. Army ever assembled. Hines had spent days preparing firing zones, registering targets, and integrating observers. All 23 battalions under his control were equipped with graphical firing tables. When German forces made renewed attacks on December 19th and 20th, Hines unleashed precise, simultaneous, overwhelming bombardments. One mission alone sent 5,760 rounds crashing into German positions in 20 minutes. Prisoners described shells arriving with no warning, entire battalions erased before they could scatter. On December 21st, the 12th SS Panzer Division launched another attack, supported by tanks, toward Domain Butkenbach. American forward observers called in fire. Dozens of batteries calculated data simultaneously. Time-on-target missions landed hundreds of shells at once. High-explosive rounds, airburst-timed fuses scattering shrapnel laterally across open fields, and white phosphorus erupting smoke and fire. German formations dissolved under the impacts. Tanks withdrew. Infantry broke. The same happened with every attack that day. On December 22nd, Hines directed one of the largest artillery missions of the war, over 10,000 rounds in a single day, shattering yet another German buildup before it could launch. Veterans of the Eastern Front said that although Soviet artillery was heavier in raw volume, it lacked the flexibility and responsiveness of the Americans. Russian barrages were pre-planned sledgehammers. American artillery at Elsenborn was a scalpel, instantly retargetable, coordinated, devastating. German reports noted that American observers seemed omnipresent, calling fire on any movement, any assembly area, any attempted advance, even on routes thought to be concealed. The Germans never discovered the true reason for the speed. The small wooden graphical firing table, which looked like an ordinary ruler and was often overlooked in captured command posts. German doctrine relied on pre-plotted concentrations and slow recalculation. American doctrine relied on real-time observation and instantaneous computation. The psychological effect was profound. Elite SS units that expected easy breakthrough instead saw their attacks annihilated before reaching American infantry. Morale collapsed as soldiers realized they were being destroyed before even engaging. By December 23rd, the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend, fanatically motivated, considered elite, was so shattered it had to be pulled from the line. The failure to take Elsenborn Ridge forced Hitler to redirect his offensive southward, breaking the coherence of the Ardennes plan and ensuring German forces would never reach their strategic objectives. And throughout the later fighting, including the defense of Bastogne, the same American artillery system continued breaking German attacks faster than they could be launched. The Battle of Elsenborn Ridge became the only sector of the Ardennes front where American forces not only held their ground but pushed the Germans back, due entirely to disciplined infantry, well-placed defenses, and above all, the unprecedented speed, accuracy, and coordination of American artillery, made possible by one small, overlooked invention that changed the battlefield forever.